So I'll give an introduction, sort of to lay the groundwork of what we're going to be talking about. But I guess this is part of it. But anyway, it's not about the words in the end. The words do have a certain value to them as far as not being misleading is about the best you can do. So there's an experience that can appear in the body that has the sense of being the owner of the knower of the body. And when we talk with each other, what will happen is that experience will know what we're talking about. So this will say something like, this is insubstantial. And it's already insubstantial. That being said doesn't change it. But that experience of knowing it's in the body will then either think it knows what that means or feel like it's something that it needs to learn. And it will do that with everything we're talking about. That's not a problem. And understanding the concepts which we're going to discuss today can be in some ways relieving or relaxing, also really annoying. I understand. And I got a lot of yeses for the annoying part. So it's not about changing that. It's just merely pointing out that that experience isn't what in the end we're talking about. What we're talking about in the end doesn't actually have to do with what's happening in the sense of knowing what's happening. That separate experience lives in a world of a subject-object reality. And its happiness and unhappiness is dependent upon what's happening, how it feels and what it thinks. And so in its dream world of separation, it tries to control, tries to manipulate, not only its own feelings and thoughts, but circumstances. Being separate, that's the only place that hope for it lives, is in the future, because it's not this. Hope isn't this. You got that, right? Hope is always somewhere else. That's why hope isn't so great. But anyway, don't tell the me that. It's always trying to manipulate this to have, in hope, to have a better experience in the future. So in that way, it literally can't hear what we're talking about. It's sort of like there's two realities that sort of collide here. There aren't two, but just to explain it. It's like there's two realities that collide. The one that feels like it knows what this is, part of that is the feeling that it has meaning and purpose, and that the appearance is full of intention, meaning it's becoming something. And what's being shared here, which has none of that. And this isn't changing anything. So even that dream world of separation, of knowing, already doesn't have any real intention, is already the same insubstantiality that everything already is already hopeless, because it isn't going anywhere. The intention that it feels like this permeates this, that something needs to be happening so that this will get better, meaning its experience will get better, it will have a better experience, is already empty. It's already done. And that's how the two sort of realities don't meet. All this shares, is that what is already what's longed for. And that's just meaningless to that experience that feels like something needs to happen in the future, that its whole life is about becoming something. And even this saying, it's already done. If there's a knower, it's going to say, well, that's something I need to find. That's something I need to know. I don't know it. There's no way to know what we're talking about. The value that the individual has on the knowing of experience and the becoming in its dream world of real time is emptiness appearing to happen. It already isn't going anywhere. This isn't changing. What this is saying, and it might be difficult to understand, isn't actually changing anything. There isn't any intention, because from this perspective, we can get into that, it's already done. It's already insubstantial. Yeah. Yeah. That was the introduction.
Can you say more about an unsubstantial?
Insubstantial?
Mm-hmm.
Unsubstantial?
Whatever you use.
Insubstantial. I don't know. I think it's insubstantial. Just so for the individual, the experience is people seem to identify it differently, but the sense is I either have a body or I am a body. It's one of those two. And that experience is one of being a reality. I know I am, I'm real. Mm. And that I am, I'm real is also experienced as everything is real. And that works in all, I want to say dimensions, it's not that special, but with time and space and experience and all those things, all of that is real. And part of that substantiality and part of that experience of being real is that my experience or my reality has meaning, it has purpose, I have free will, and it's up to me to create a reality. That's all part of that substantiality or solidity of this. And it's experienced as things being, fixed, separate.
So I've heard you say that seeking is suffering.
Yeah.
But my question is, suffering isn't necessarily seeking, right? Would you say that seeking is just one kind of suffering?
No. No, the energy of seeking and the substantial making, so just because the individual feels like it is substantial and everything else is substantial doesn't make it substantial. The individual is actually an illusion. It doesn't actually happen. It isn't real. But that energy of substantiality is what gives emotions and feelings their sense of substantiality, and that is the suffering that the individual experiences. If there isn't anything to give it substantiality or the experience of it, then it's just simply what it is, which is what can't be described being an emotion or a feeling.
And does the substantiality or the sense of substantiality necessarily correspond to seeking?
Yeah, oh yeah. You don't have a seeker without an individual, and you don't have an individual without seeking. It's the same energy. When that separate sense arises, what happens fundamentally is there's a sense of loss or a sense of something missing, which is reflected in the experience of the individual, which fundamentally feels like something needs to happen. That something needs to happen, even if it is just knowing I am, is a reaction to the sense of loss, which is separation. Separation is the sense of loss.
Mm. Okay. So the sense of loss will always create the desire to not be separate anymore.
Oh, it doesn't. No, it doesn't want to. It doesn't want to not. It doesn't want what we're talking about.
Or maybe a longing rather than a desire.
Yeah, what it wants is more. Mm-hmm. The sense of loss being insatiable. It can only look for more. And in the personal experience, that's just simply looking for a better experience, being good enough, having the right experiences, finding the right, whatever, partner, Netflix movie, enough money, whatever it is. It's always something. It has the sense that its fulfillment which it can't find, and it can only find satisfaction, is hidden in the next thing it can achieve. And so it's on that wheel. Even if it is surrender or giving up or sitting in a cave, whatever that intention appears as, there's the idea behind it that what's really wanted is not longing, is hidden in the next experience. And that if it had enough experience, or the right experience, or enough stuff, that it would find fulfillment. But it can't, because fulfillment isn't in that dualistic reality. And the real problem for the individual is that whatever is happening is the fulfillment that's longed for. It just isn't something that it can have, because it's not separate.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that seeking drive doesn't even satiate the older you get. I look at my own mother, and she's ill and, ready to pass on, and she's still watching HGTV, looking for her next home improvement project.
I'm not saying that if there wasn't seeking, there wouldn't be watching HGTV. There's an energy of seeking that thinks that what's longed for is an object to be found.
Yeah.
So there might not, there doesn't need to be a seeker to watch HGTV or earn a lot of money or any of those things.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that when there is an individual, there's an idea that happiness is hidden in objects, in getting.
Right. And I can see that in her, that she's still, trying to get, fulfilled through that, And it's not going to happen.
Seeking energy might make someone more likely to watch HGTV, right?
I don't know what HGTV is, but
Or just any.
not necessarily. If there wasn't any seeking energy, there wouldn't be any sort of spiritual practice. That's obvious. There wouldn't be any religion, because those are all sort of answers that the individual can understand and make sense to it, and actually agree with its idea, with its actually bodily felt idea that there's something that needs to happen. Because those spirituality and the most spiritual traditions and things, and religion always agree with the individual. Yes, there's something missing, and yes, there is a you that has free will, and yes, there is something you need to do to find fulfillment. So it fits, fits.
It seems like the separate or the individual person that's doing the seeking, for my personal experience anyway, is seeking perhaps relevance.
Oh, yeah.
Like looking for relevance.
Yeah.
And so then in looking for that relevance, it literally could use anything and everything in the search.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this makes my heart pound to even say this, all of a sudden when whatever that is that doesn't seek relevance,
Yeah.
sees the relevance or the separate self see, like when it's seen, I don't know, there seems to be this back and forth play.
Yeah.
but like when that relevance, it's like the gig is up. Like this mirage is seeking to be seen, and then it's like something shows up that says, well, it's a mirage. I don't know how to put it. It's like the relevance, there's just no relevance anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know, it erases those, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
So it's not personal to you, or anyone. In that sense, there isn't anything personal. But this sense of separation feels special.
Mhm. Mhm.
It just
keeps
fundamentally
looking for it.
feels special.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it wants that reflected in the experience that it's special.
yeah. And then that other part that doesn't seem to care about much at all, that everything, it seems like this play, I don't know, for me, and
Yeah.
there's this back and forth, whatever, but then that other part sometimes is like, it's not even real. Like the specialness that it seeks is, there's no such thing as what it's seeking.
No.
It's not real.
Well, what it's seeking is relevant to it.
Yeah, so it's like this whole separate little thing
It's a
going
whole
on.
separate reality
Yeah.
called me, in my reality.
Yes. And sometimes I can see it.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't.
It just hit you like a train.
No, it didn't. It doesn't happen. What we're talking with, where this is coming from, isn't because something happened to Jim. It's because there isn't a Jim.
Yeah. But what did you not see when you said I didn't see it?
There wasn't that back and forth. To me, it sounds a bit like a spiritual practice of detaching from the sense of relevance or needing to become or something like that. There's
Okay.
another position being taken as opposed to that one, which is a better one. And detachment is something that totally makes sense to the individual. It's part of the suffering is thoughts and feelings, which are, it suffers under thoughts and feelings. And so it sounds like a good idea to sort of pull back from that and see that's not me, something like that.
Gotcha.
And that feels better. But there's still a position that knows it's not me.
Mm.
This doesn't know it is or it isn't. And in that way, everything just is and isn't. Can't tell you anything. I can. I only say that after you pay me.
Thanks for nothing.
So I've heard you say that, this is it, this is all there is, or whatever. But then, so I didn't understand what did you say?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
and then, but then when you just said this is and this isn't, I didn't where was that going?
Oh, the insubstantiality of it.
Oh,
This is it, and this is insubstantial.
oh, okay, thank you.
So is there a point to discerning?
No.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Oh, that was
Well, I was curious because when you were, what's your name?
Nancy.
Nancy, when you were talking to Nancy, sort of explaining that was some kind of practice. There's no point in knowing that or recognizing that.
No. There's no real point in anything.
Because it seems that the self can't help but seek in whatever, or practice or whatever
Totally.
it does. Yeah.
Totally. And this can't help but to point out the hopelessness of it, the illusory nature of it. It just does.
Did you just say this can't help but point out the helplessness of it?
Yeah, hopelessness.
Hopeless. Love it. So it
When you
makes
say
me laugh.
this, you're referring to that body-mind.
Yeah. It's not really about the body mind, but I know what you mean. It's
Oh, now you have to say it. Oh.
it's nothing. It's nothing which apparently happens. And so the body mind and the table and the floor are the same, really. It's nothing flooring and tabling and body minding. It's the same there. That's the reason I can't tell you. It's not separate. There's no authority, no hierarchy. It's all already nothing appearing to happen. And within that nothing appearing to happen, there arises this sense of separation which says, I'm doing this, or I am real, or this is real. And that, that sense of separation is the separation from that fullness, which is nothing, everything. It doesn't change it, though, because there isn't anything but nothing, everything. So it doesn't really matter that there's an individual, the illusory experience of an individual saying, I'm on a journey of becoming. Because that's nothing being an individual on a journey to become. It's wonderful.
And when we say that there's just nothing appearing as this and that, you and me, we're just talking about experience, right? We can't say anything about what's other than experience. Like I know
That's
that
right.
I seem to experience the world,
But that's the illusion.
and that's an illusion, right? So that illusion exists within experience, and the world that I seem to be experiencing.
No. The illusion is the experience,
Okay.
which is in the experience of the individual. It's a landing spot. So this seems to hit here and be registered as something really happening. That doesn't happen here. There's no landing spot.
Right.
There isn't anyone here. There isn't even a here.
There's no location.
There isn't even a here to know that there isn't anyone here for this to land anywhere. It's just happening.
Oh, okay. But we can't say anything about what's there could be something other than what appears, right? We know that what appears is
All there is
nothing appearing as something, but there could be a world apart from what appears.
But
that we just can't say anything.
But that's
about.
what appears.
Could there be aspects of the world?
There's
that
only what
don't
appears.
appear?
There's only what appears.
But there's
And the
nothing-
idea that there's other aspects are what appears.
So there's nothing that doesn't appear.
There's nothing, well, there's just what appears. The idea that there's nothing that doesn't appear is just what appears. There's just what appears. There's just what is and isn't. It's not, the individual sees it as limited because it reduces its experience where it has hope. Another way of saying hope is something else. For the individual, it lives in a world that there's something else. Something missing turns into something else. It's like a treasure somewhere, something unknown that it could find, something somewhere else. And although it seems unlimited, that sort of idea that it can go in all sorts of different directions, it's still limited to the experience of the individual. True boundlessness is that there is only what is. Has absolutely no edges or limits to it anywhere. Anything is what is. Whatever appears is what is.
Mhm. Is there a sense in which the core of the earth is, even though it's never appeared? to
Well, the
anyone?
idea of it, that is what is. The idea that there's a core to the center of the earth that has never appeared. We're not talking about necessarily physically. Anything that appears, a memory, a feeling, anything that can be named is what appears.
Mhm.
So any idea that comes up, that's what is. What's no longer relevant is the reality of it. So for the individual, ghosts, it's important, or God, it's important, or ESP, or spiritual experiences, those have all real importance to it because it has this idea of something else where its dream, where its need, the fulfillment is hidden. So those things have value. They don't really. Makes no difference if there are ghosts, if there's ESP, spiritual experiences, God. Makes absolutely no difference because it's all nothing appearing to happen. It's just simply what is. When there isn't anyone seeking anything, then there's just what appears. It doesn't matter.
Mhm. So the idea of the core of the earth
Yeah,
appears.
yeah.
But there couldn't be an aspect of the core of the earth that doesn't appear.
That just appeared. The idea that there's an aspect of the core of the earth that hasn't been realized or found or something like that. And there might even be research into that. There might be somebody that finds a ship that can drill through the earth into the core and find that aspect that has never been known.
And before anyone had ever imagined that there could be a core of the earth, it didn't appear in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it appeared in somebody's imagination or the idea that there could be something down there. That's the reason they built the ship.
Mhm. But before that happened, when no one had even thought of it before, it just didn't exist at all, even though it seemed to be having effects on the planet.
Absolutely.
Through the laws of physics.
Absolutely. Like mesons and whatever else they've just found. Those little tiny particles out of which everything seems to be built. Everything was still built out of the Higgs boson, or the Higgs boson still gave solidity or reality to everything, even though no one knew it was there. Even though Higgs said it was, nobody believed him. It was still apparently doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they found it, and they go, oh, well, that's what's doing it.
Right. But did it not exist in any way before it appeared as a concept in someone's mind?
As an idea, of course it must have existed.
But before it was an idea.
Yeah, totally, it must have. Just like the Earth, even though before Galileo everybody thought the Earth was the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I think they killed him, didn't they? Or did they just want to? I can't remember. Because you weren't allowed to say that. But it still wasn't.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there isn't anything hidden in those discoveries. There isn't anything of value in knowing. It's either recognized or it's not. It's either unreal, undiscovered, or it's not. It doesn't mean anything. It's just what is. What's longed for isn't hidden in that. What's longed for is speaking and hearing and flooring.
Right. I'm just wondering if there are things, could there be things that aren't longed for? Things that have never been thought of? Like before anyone had thought of the Higgs boson, would the Higgs boson have been an example of something that exists but doesn't appear?
I don't know. I think really what we're talking about is what I just talked about. The idea that in the end, enough knowing or not knowing something that's out there could lead to something really missing. And that there's some value in knowing more. And that knowing more, there's a hope that at some point enough will be known. I think that's basically where that's coming from. But there isn't any value in any of that. But of course, that's what discovery is. They discover new things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They always will. As long as the individual or even a scientist looks, she'll discover something new.
Mm-hmm. Something that existed but wasn't appearing
Totally.
until now.
Totally.
Okay. One more follow-up.
All right, well, this is it then.
This is it.
Until your next one.
So, if it existed but wasn't appearing until now, could that have been an example of something that existed but wasn't nothing?
Everything is nothing.
Everything that appears is nothing, but how can we say anything about what doesn't appear?
All there is nothing, and it appears as this room.
Hmm.
And it can appear as the idea that there are undiscovered realities. But what isn't hidden is anything of value.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is the appearance not trying to become a better appearance, but what's longed for is already this. There isn't anything hidden of value.
Right.
And in that way, as this is the only value, there isn't any value. It's already done.
Mm-hmm.
My turn. One turn in the hot seat. So obviously, I come to your meetings and whatever, but lately there's been this voice which is like, I don't want to be nothing. I don't want to be an illusion. I don't want to be the only thing that's completely unreal. Right? I'm gonna hear you say that. The only thing that's completely unreal is to me. It's like I don't want to be that. It's like, but there's somebody here saying that, or there seems to be somebody here saying that.
Yeah.
And like the other day, somehow magically, like all of my past suffering wasn't real. Like it happened, I have memories, but somehow it was, I can't explain it, okay? But it's like all of the years and years and years, decades of misery and suffering and suicidal, blah, 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 blah. It's like somehow that like never happened. And I wanted to keep it, like I wanted to hang on to it. Like I really wanted it to be
You
real.
wanted it really to happen,
I wanted
that
to
nothing
really
happened.
have happened.
That nothing, got it.
The suffering
Right,
was
got it.
real.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, if my suffering ends now, so to speak,
Yeah.
it's now forward,
Yeah.
that's okay.
The
But I still
idea
wanna
that
hang
you're
on to
actually
that.
on some sort of path,
Yeah,
and that it has some value,
yeah,
and that if it all disappears, then nothing ever had any value.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wah,
like
wah.
that. I know, it's kind of whiny. I don't like
That's not what I was saying. I was saying the
booby.
booby prize.
Oh.
Nobody wins.
I think it's whiny myself. I was saying that yesterday. It's such a whiny little thing.
Hmm. No, I get it. Especially when there's been a lot of suffering, and with very spiritual people who feel like they're, just about to become enlightened, they'll get really angry at this message.
They're the worst.
Spiritual people are the worst.
I've been called out.
I'd like to whine now. So you were talking about earlier about all of this landing somewhere.
Yeah.
So the I am landing here.
The I is a landing spot for what's happening. That's the experience of it.
But the experience of it is also landing here.
Yeah. Well, and not really. It's sort of the genesis of landing somewhere.
Okay.
What does that mean?
The beginning.
So when you say that part of this is very sad and disappointing,
What is?
that the realization of that the I is always that this is always the genesis of where the I appears.
Yeah.
That's sad and disappointing is
Not
because
necessarily.
Well,
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I said that.
the message is disappointing. To
The-
the I.
it can be.
Yeah. Okay.
It can be very freeing.
Okay. So I guess that's maybe where that would come from. is like, okay, well, if this is always the genesis of where I is appearing, then there was nothing before that, so I don't exist. So that's the sad part. It can be sad.
Some people can, it can be sad.
Okay.
It can be all sorts of things. You know, the me has an investment in its experience, and so however this then lands,
Okay.
or doesn't land. There doesn't have to be any emotion at all. There might just be a sense. There might just be a body getting up and leaving and going, oh, there's no one here. It's that simple. It's not a process. I know we're talking about different things for people happening and all of that, but it's all what I would call a story, an explanation of how this came to be as a result of all the other moments that came before it. But there aren't. I mean, we talk about it and it's fine, because that's what happens. There's an apparent history, but it's just simply nothing appearing as an apparent history. So there's no process or need for any emotions or anything else to happen. All this is saying is there's an experience of separation, which is an illusion, which hides the fact that everything is already whole. And the illusion is wholeness appearing as an illusion.
Jim, you had talked about in previous conversations about how when it was recognized that the me was never there, it wasn't recognized until it was actually leaving, at that point. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, how...
I don't know what you're talking about
like,
exactly. So in the story of Jim, there were all sorts of insights and
Yeah.
realizations and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
the end isn't something that happened.
Right.
So I wouldn't have said that it happened.
Okay. Or that it never really was there.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it came to the realization that it never was there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But that wasn't realized until, it was actually falling away.
Oh, well, in the
the
story of Jim, there was an
yeah.
apparent process of it falling
Yeah.
away, and a lot
Yeah.
of insights and realizations happened in that apparent time.
Right.
But the end of it is that there,
It never was there.
well, the end of it isn't anything. There just isn't any separation.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
Well, it's these two realities that don't meet. In the story of the individual, it wants something that to happen.
Yeah.
And so it wants to make there being no one something
Mhm.
that happens.
Right.
And what it can't hear is there isn't anyone already.
Yeah.
So it can't happen that it
Yeah.
falls away.
Yeah, it's so profound to me.
Mhm.
Because is there, and when you say the end of it,
Yeah,
what is that? I mean, is there?
a story.
So there's.
It's just a story.
That's just a story.
Yeah. How can there be an end to something that never happened?
Yeah.
And that's what it is, the end of something that never happened.
And those insights that happened in the apparent
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
were they relevant
No, well, nothing. They seemed relevant
at the time?
and important, and maybe even a little bit more special and important. There's no one here.
Oh, can we do that again?
You said something like the individual is invested in their experience,
Yeah,
like trying to find some return on my investment.
yeah, absolutely.
And there isn't.
No. There's no return on investment. Kind of like the stock market these days.
Thank goodness.
So Jim, was there a knowing at the end of it?
No, absolutely, exactly not.
So how is there a, how do you come to the end of it?
Yeah, well, there isn't one.
So
The end of something that never happened. Yeah, figure it out. You think I should do better than that? This.
Well, even this, like, to me, this is indescribable and undefinable. How does everyone's this is different, isn't it?
Oh, no, of course not.
It's all.
If you're
same
talking,
this.
there's two things happening there. If you're talking about the individual feels like there's 15 different real perspectives in the room. Its perspective and all the others' perspectives. And so that's evidence of separation.
Right.
And that's the experience of the individual of having a position and knowing its position is real. When there's an individual, its reality is I am real, and it sees other realities in every body. The same reality that it has. And that confirms, and it does actually, and the other bodies will actually confirm it as well, that there is different other reality. But, yeah, there aren't.
Just the appearance.
It's just an appearance of nothing. There aren't different realities.
And yet it seems like we're all sitting here for the this.
From here, there are bodies sitting in a room. And they're all nothing. And there's no one in the room, there's just bodies.
So at some point in that body, or in any body, you're saying there's no, so there was a seeker,
Yeah.
but you're saying there never was a seeker, I get that, but at some point there was a recognition that there's no seeker.
No. Well, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. There were realizations that never is a you. There isn't a you to follow.
Yeah.
There was a sort of a thing that, as part of the story of Jim, where it saw how the whole thing, it fell apart in the opposite order in which it builds up. And so I'll talk about that sometimes, how it was like here and then nowhere, and all that.
There's kind
But
of,
that's all just story stuff.
that's just another story.
Yeah. It's all about that, all of that feeds into that sort of knowingness, information. But what's really longed for is the end of the need to know what this is. Knowing is its own demand. The individual, if you go further, knowing is experience. And that experience, that need for experience, is really just to know I am, fundamentally. That's the most terrifying, is that not only is that illusory, but what's truly longed for is the absence of that.
So I have my little granddaughter, and it's so funny because she's going to be 2 in 2 months, and just seeing the shift in her from when she was even one, when there was no record, just looking around, and you know, I watch her and I watch her on the monitor while she's napping, and she's just looking, and she does it, and now she's starting to grasp. She'll say mine, and she has tantrums. She'll have like way more, where she never used to. It's so interesting. It's like all the concepts are starting to.
I'd be wary of saying that tantrums are only there because there's a building individual or the sense of separation. Emotions are just emotions.
So
You
do
don't
they
need an
seem to get
individual.
stronger? So
When there isn't anyone, yes.
emotions become stronger when there isn't anyone.
They don't seem to have the same duration, but they do seem to have quite an energy.
Huh.
But some emotions are no longer there, like shame and guilt and,
Yeah, all those self-referential ones
you know.
that have to do with being, the individual's really, something that's very important to it is self-image. And so all of those emotions that have to do with self-consciousness.
Go away.
Yeah, well, go away, yeah.
So feelings can happen without a filter. There's no
Yeah.
someone, no filter.
Yeah,
But that's, and then sometimes if there's a filter, then it appears differently, like shame and guilt. If there's someone having that.
that's right.
So it's not that emotions just disappear. There's only certain.
Well, not here anyway.
Huh.
I think there's some states people get into where they can keep themselves from feeling emotions.
A state that isn't the nothing.
Well, everything is nothing.
Oh, I
But
just love that.
But, you know, I think, I mean, a teacher will have to be in some sort of a state. They'll have to know something you don't.
Yeah.
And part of that state is the experience that there's someone that they can tell what they know.
Can you talk a little bit about the sense of self, like getting stronger, feeling stronger and feeling weaker?
Yeah.
Like you're approaching something and that feeling is
Approaching
just part
something?
approaching some sort of like liberation or something like
Uh.
that. Like, is that all just part of the feeling of self as well?
Yeah.
That it's feeling like I'm very much a self versus it's dissipating.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it might be true,
Okay.
but it's still a story.
Right.
I have a question about love.
I thought you asked the last one 30 minutes ago.
Oh, is that
One
too
more?
soon?
One more?
I can hold up.
That's all right. Go for it. Love. Wah, wah.
Yeah. Okay, so you say that unconditional. You say that nothing is all there is.
Yeah.
You also say that unconditional love is all there is.
Yeah.
And so different terms for the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I understand why you would call it nothing, because nothing has no attributes.
So I don't understand why I call it nothing.
Okay. But I understand even less why you would call it love, because it seems to this mind that love has attributes.
Well,
there's a reason why we use that word.
You're talking about love in a way that you understand. I don't understand unconditional love.
Uh-huh.
I don't understand nothing.
Mhm. But why use the term unconditional love? What is it about?
Because that's what it is.
According to who or what? Why not call it something else like indifference or any other?
Oh, well, it's not indifference.
But it is love.
Unconditional.
Uh-huh. But what prompts that body-mind to call it unconditional love? Is there something about it, some kind of feeling about it, or some way of experiencing it that leads you to use that term?
It is the unconditional part,
Mm-hmm.
which is the love bit, which is what we're talking about for the limitless, the boundless, without judgment, without need, without, and so without judgment doesn't mean there isn't any judgment. It just means it doesn't have any value. It's boundless. So it can appear as judgment. Obviously, there's judgment, but there's no judgment about that. There's obviously limits, but it's all boundless. So it's boundlessness appearing as limits. So there's no value in the apparent limits or space or appearances or separation. What I can't tell you is what unconditional love is. Just like I can't tell you what nothing is.
Mm.
Did you say nothing? You can't tell what nothing is?
Yeah, nothing can say what nothing is.
So it's the unknowability of love that leads you to use that term?
That's too rational. It isn't a rational deduction that comes to unconditional love. It's much more inspiration.
Mm.
Obvious. Unreflectedly obvious.
Mm.
It's, yeah.
Okay. So maybe at some point this body-mind will be like, oh, now I see. Yes, it really is.
So
love. But
it's not about that body-mind, because what you mean when you say body-mind is me.
mm-hmm.
And it's not because something happened here that this is the way it is.
Mm.
If it were that way, then there would be a path. This would have to be pure. Then you'd have to eat all sorts of white and brown rice, and raw vegetables, and become a breatharian or something. Or that would all have value. But it's not dependent on this. It's not dependent on, it's already everything.
So I think I heard you say once something like unconditional love. It's not, it's one thing, it's unconditional, and therefore it's not the love like we call romantic love or whatever. It's just this what is, and it's unconditional. So I think for me, I can get caught up in all these other things I think love means, but when you put unconditional in front of it, then that's gone.
Well, the point is you can't figure it out.
Yeah.
You can't. This isn't. When I'm talking about unconditional love, it's not a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that this knows.
Mm.
And yet it's obvious.
Yeah. But it's equally obvious there. It's just overlooked in there. It's just overlooked in the need to know it, or the idea that it's a something, that it's a feeling or something to that.
Obvious because it can't be defined in this.
Obvious because it's unreflected, because it's not. It's just the best I can do. It's not a recognition or a realization or a perception. There isn't someone here that sees it, but it just is that way. So obvious.
So you can't know it and you can't feel it.
Well,
But-
it's not that you can't know it, you can't feel it, it's just that there isn't a you.
But it can't be known and it can't be felt.
No. Well, it's a little bit more inclusive than that. Knowing is it appearing as knowing. Feeling is it appearing as feeling.
Mm. Mm.
Otherwise, the me's going to go looking for something it can't know. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's something I can't know. Where's that hidden? It's in the one place you'd never look. What is already?
And the place you can't look.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Here's my secret note. There isn't a you.
Who you're writing it to?
Love that. I just love. Oh my gosh. It's just the best. I don't get it, but it's the best.
That's the punchline.
Who was who writing it to?
That's right.
Just keep going back to the word unconditional. There's no conditions,
That's right.
so there's no discernment.
Yeah.
So that's, it's like, whoa.
No orientation,
No.
no context,
No seeing,
no seeing.
no, no.
Does it make it, of course I know there's, does it make it easier to fly all over the world when there's no orientation and you get there and you're just there because you were always there?
Yeah. Well, you weren't always there, but it's just what's happening. There's just what's happening.
This.
So does that mean comparison doesn't happen?
Not that, it just doesn't have any value.
So it can still sort of,
But if there's no
So-
personal comparison,
what does that mean?
well, it's just not about if there's a better person, which is the idea that the individual has sort of two, well, it has a lot of different modes, but in one aspect, has sort of two modes. Either there's something wrong with me or there's something wrong with the world. And comparison in its reality has to do with those things and making them better. Trying to make the world better, trying to make itself better. And in the end, that's about finding fulfillment. And so that sort of comparison doesn't happen. Just like that sort of judgment doesn't happen about whether, how people should be. The story of judgment for the individual is a story of how it's going to find happiness. And so everyone that does the things that it thinks are going to bring happiness, then they're good people, and the ones that don't are bad people. And so that's just part of the illusion of separation.
So is the sense of self kind of like something that has to be
No.
continued? Like managed in a way as
No.
it's realized that it's just a thought,
Well, it's not a thought.
an appearance.
No. The separation begins, it all happens truly timelessly, but just as I said before, this saw how it built up, it fell apart. Wasn't the end of me, it was just another sort of realization. So it's not really have any value, but it's a contracted energy in the body, which for no reason at all, says here. And that here is a sense of having something or owning something. And out of that position is an I am here. And that I am here is an energy in the entire body. So that contracted energy is in the entire body. And thoughts and feelings happen. They just happen like anything, like chairs and floors happen. When there's an individual, just like with chairs and floors, because for the individual, those are happening to it. The thoughts and feelings are its thoughts and feelings. But it's an energetic sense in the body, a held energy in the body of being here and knowing.
What nothing to do.
Well, there isn't anything that needs to happen. Doing happens. It's got nothing to do with that. There isn't any one to do anything. But fundamentally, it knows it has something to do. And what it, it depends on where you start, but power, position, and prestige are its fundamental motivators. And control and free will are its tools. All of that's illusory, but that's what it feels like it has to manipulate its experience to get. In the end, what it wants is endless happiness. It's never thought it through, because if it was happy all the time, it wouldn't know it. That'd be boring. So really what it wants is what it has, which is happy and unhappy, which is suffering. So it's quite happy to be unhappy as long as it can be happy again.
As long as I'm suffering, there's some direction and meaning to my life.
Totally.
It gives me some focus. Oh, I'm seeking endless suffering.
That's
but if I
right.
don't have it,
Yeah.
what do I do now? What do
Yeah,
I
well,
do?
if there isn't anyone there isn't that question.
There's a question here.
That's a way to make a problem out of something that's not happening.
It just seems like when all that fades away and there's just this freedom, like it's too much somehow. It's like this is too much freedom.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to hold on to.
Like Arjuna, show me your face, show me your face. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Do you know the story? Yeah.
No.
Oh, in the Bhagavad Gita, there's Arjuna, who's the main character, and he claims that he wants to know God, or I don't know if it's called God or whatever. Yeah, and then he says, all I want you is to reveal your face, and he does, or it does, or whatever, and he goes, oops, never mind. A little more dramatically, because then he doesn't want this. I mean, it can't want this, but it doesn't either.
So it really wants a roller coaster of happy and unhappy.
Yeah. Believing that it wants to be happy all the time. The worst thing that can happen to an individual is that it gets everything it wants. Because then it can't excuse the unhappy in you. It starts to act really weird and do weird stuff.
So are human beings born this way, or is this an acquired?
It doesn't
Taste,
seem to,
so
well,
to speak.
you were telling me about the 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can see the innocence there.
Yeah.
There isn't anyone in that. It's
Yeah.
innocence.
Right.
It seems to come at some later time.
So it might be a learned thing or something.
It isn't learned.
It just comes.
It just happens for no reason. But not to everyone. Well, I mean, I can't prove it, but people have called me on the phone and told me that, first off, interestingly enough, that they remember it happening, which I think is fascinating, and that some others, that it never happened. They never had that sense.
You said the sense of self is an energetic contraction
Yeah.
throughout the body.
Yeah.
Does that mean that if there was suddenly no bodily sensation, there would be no sense of self?
I don't know I mean, it's a theoretical?
Well, I mean, there are substances that can, remove all physical sensation.
Right. But who would know that there's no physical sensation?
Mm.
That's what I find with
I
the
don't know.
substances and the people that take them. When I first started talking in England, there were a lot of people that took something called 5-MeO, and a lot of them came, and they were like, "You say exactly what it's like," and they got so disillusioned so quickly because it just seems to me that they are repeating something they experienced. It just doesn't have any relationship to what we're talking about here. It's just another experience.
Mhm.
But when you fall asleep at night, you lose your sense of self.
Yeah.
So, in that respect, you lose your sense of self every night
Mm.
when you go to sleep, fall into deep sleep. That energetic pull is gone,
Yeah.
but you don't know it.
Yeah.
So if somebody loses their bodily sensation, or does 5-MeO DMT, and then they come out of that, and they can remember what it was like, I mean, could that be the same as losing the sense of self and then having it come back?
Well, I couldn't tell you what it was like. So if they can tell you what it's like, it's not.
Well, I think they would say they can't tell you what it's like.
Oh, right.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
There wouldn't be anyone to come back, though. So there's no way there could be an individual showing up here, even if the same contraction and everything happened. It wouldn't make any difference because it doesn't have any relationship to what's happening. It makes no difference if there's an individual or not. So there wouldn't be anyone to come back to say they couldn't tell you what it's like, what it was like then. Do you know what I mean?
Are you saying that if the sense of self really dissolved, it wouldn't be able to come back?
Oh, totally. Well, because it doesn't. It doesn't really dissolve. There just never is an individual.
But there's a sense of an individual.
To the individual, the sense of being an individual is one that I am in the body. I am separate from everything else. There is no reality to that beyond the experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, from here, there isn't anyone. There isn't anyone there.
Mm-hmm. But do you think it's possible that a substance can allow these illusions to disappear temporarily?
No, because it isn't in the brain. The brain and discussing it as it being in the brain or in the body are a story. Liberation doesn't happen in the body. It's not a localized, new experience. It's the end of localized experience, or the end of an experiencer.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like
Five
what it's like to be on 5.
But yet the contracted energy in the body seems to subside.
Yeah,
It
That's
seems
true.
Something shifts
That's
physically
true.
in the body.
yeah,
It has a sense of more lightness
Yeah.
and,
yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
And the feeling, the literal feeling of separation dissipates as well when
Yeah.
that contracted energy
Yeah.
does whatever it is it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, which then actually makes your brain not think, but then it all goes like that together.
I'm not sure what that was, but yeah.
Something goes together.
Well-
I don't know what it is, something fits.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There's a fitting in the I don't know.
No, it's exactly like that. It all fits. But it isn't new in that it always fits.
It always was,
Yeah.
yeah, it always is, or it's that contracted energy in
Makes
the
it
body.
seem like it doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah, and that fits too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's no more worry when the sun's
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Worry,
Worry still
concern,
alive.
concern.
Yeah. Just less probably.
Well, it just doesn't happen for anyone. It's just concern.
Yeah, just,
There's a little worry if the deer are gonna eat all the vegetables in the garden. It's a big deal. It's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
One evening. That's all it would take. I
And then the
think.
raccoons, and then the tomato worms, and
Those are amazing, aren't they? Tomato worms?
Oh, they're great.
voracious, beautiful things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not a lot of overthinking things.
You can't really define, I mean, there's certain things that obviously don't happen, but
Yeah.
there might be thinking about things.
Yeah.
And it's just what the individual can't get is it's not about what's happened. Because for it, it's all about what happens. What this is saying is that it doesn't happen for anyone. And that's what's lonely. The happening for someone hides the freedom that's already everything. Why not worry? And that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's probably less worrying when the future doesn't feel real like it does now.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah.
Like worrying about retirement income or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Planning happens.
Yeah,
That's how this body gets here.
sure.
Planning.
I got stuck on the word overlooked. And you said, like, we're all just this. We just overlook it. And then I got to thinking, how did I overlook it?
Exactly.
Like, I can fix that. How can I overlook it without, oh dear. I'm looking over a four-leaf clover. I'm looking over, I'm overlooking, I'm overlooking. Oh, well.
So when you said the part about, you could be watching, we were talking about HGTV, let's just say Netflix. You're watching Netflix
Yeah.
with seeking, or you're not. And so, but if no one's here, how can I know which one I'm doing? I can't know. I mean.
In a sense, there isn't a knowing of it, but it is obvious. The individual there's a sense of need in everything.
A sense of need.
Mm.
Like this one thinks it's going to get something that will help it have a better experience if
It's
it watches
looking for
Netflix.
a better experience.
Uh-huh.
I mean, fundamentally, there's very little about this conversation that the individual can recognize.
Hmm.
It doesn't know what it is.
Okay.
It doesn't know what the contracted energy feels like. It doesn't know how it affects its body. It doesn't know what it means that there isn't any one. It doesn't know what nothing is. So there's very little that it can really grasp. And in the end, really what's being shared is nothing.
Hmm.
There isn't actually a message.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a brick wall. It's got all that I can offer.
That's the beauty of it, though.
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is.
It's just nothing. It's full stop, nothing. That's it.
Mhm.
End of story. Amazing.
Mhm.
Oh.
Can you talk about the phrase falling away?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's a story.
in the same way that a
The
person
end
that
of me.
uses 5-MeO in England
Yeah.
and not here
I
would tell a
didn't
story.
get that part.
In the same way that the
5-MeO
person using 5-MeO in your England trip or
Mm.
somewhere in Europe, they're telling you the same story as they sensed a falling away with the substance.
Who sensed the falling away, right?
How did Jim see a falling away?
Yet it didn't.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Then you can't talk about falling away, you're just trying to talk about what this is. And
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
Okay.
I can't talk about it. I think I've said that.
Well, I thought you were talking.
I think I've said the end of something that never happened,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is about the best you can do, which isn't something that happens. It's sort of the two realities collide. The experience of the individual that this is really happening. And so the idea that if this were going to stop really happening, as Jim's talking about, that would be something that really happens.
Mm-hmm.
And where this is coming from, that it isn't already really happening.
Is that like what some would call the relative versus the absolute?
Well, and for the individual that makes sense. And what I'm saying is that the relative and the absolute are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Already.
Mm-hmm. And the loss of the sense of self isn't something that happens, but it happens in the same sense that anything else seems to happen. Like in the way that
Not really.
getting dressed earlier
No.
today, like in the way
No.
that happened. For
No, but there was an apparent getting dressed.
Mm-hmm.
The individual never is.
Mm-hmm.
There never is separation.
Mm-hmm. There's the illusion of it.
There is.
And so
And apparent effects
right.
of illusions, like churches,
Mm-hmm. And so the
meditation groups.
and so the and so the apparent falling away of that illusion happens only in the same way that my getting dressed this morning happened.
No, it's less
But they're
real.
both illusory.
It's less real than that. No, the getting the dress. I make a differentiation between what appears to happen,
Mhm.
which has a reality, which is insubstantial. So it's an insubstantial reality. It's nothing appearing to happen. The individual actually never happens.
Right. But the illusion of it happens.
Apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah.
And then the falling away of that illusion can apparently happen.
But it never. But that's the difference. It never happened.
Mhm.
It doesn't have any reality to it. The only reality it has is to itself. And when that reality to itself isn't there, it never had any reality. It has no reality outside of that.
Mhm. So even the illusion of the sense of self is less real than the clothes I'm wearing.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yet it seems so real. Yet it-
To itself.
Yeah. Yet it doesn't even apparently happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it does apparently happen. It's an illusion, an
Yeah.
apparent illusion.
Yeah.
So could the sense of self seem more real because of the contraction in the body?
Well, if there weren't a contraction, there wouldn't be a sense of self.
So we're back to the energy of the contraction of the body.
Yeah.
It's not a contraction like that we're aware of when we're contracted. It's something deeper than that.
Well, it is awareness or consciousness.
Consciousness.
It's the same energy.
So when you said about there being an awareness of just bodies in the room, that includes that body, but no differentiation as.
Oh, this obviously in some way knows that it's not that body.
Oh.
Or we might run into each other, right? If the ape walks through doors pretty efficiently, eats food very effectively.
There's just no selves there.
It's just no one.
No self, no one.
And it's already that way.
Yeah.
Overlooked it. Oh, shoot. Already.
Jim, you said when yourself fell away, you saw the steps or whatever, like how it was created. But then it kind of like the thing I guess I'll never understand, but I keep wanting to understand is like how here and contracted energy and all that turns into me, like that personalization.
Oh, it's
Like
that ownership. It's the sense of having something, which is here. Here and having something is the beginning of it.
But the sense that I'm speaking right now.
That comes after.
Yeah, that comes after. Like, how does that even happen? Like,
Oh.
what is that connection between one and the other? Because I hear let's.
Well, here is a position.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I get.
And out of the position, there's an owner, a knower of that position. I.
Like that step, it just doesn't, like, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just ignoring it, but I can't quite grasp, understand.
Now I get it.
Like, that, there's no connection between
Yeah.
one and the other.
Yeah, oh, they're the same. And I guess the question the individual would then ask, which isn't helpful, is how do I know I'm here? Which isn't helpful.
I know that.
Because there's a mirror behind you. How about that?
Yeah, wow. It's all symbolic.
You said a question, how do I know I'm here, isn't helpful because it assumes that there's an I.
Well, if there's a question. No questions are helpful for a couple of reasons. But fundamentally, the questioner is an illusion. So the whole impetus to ask the question comes out of an unreal reality. That needs to be an answer. That there's a real question to this. There'd have to be something separate to help.
So if the emotion of sadness came about,
Yeah?
there's nothing to push it away.
No. Well, why? It's just sadness. The individual is threatened by emotions and tries to control them. It just does.
It's like, why not worry? Why not be sad? It just doesn't matter. Sad, angry, disappointed. Why not be? Just doesn't matter.
So really the best we can do when we're I know, I'm hilarious. I should really be a stand-up comedian.
No.
The best we can do is what?
I didn't know if you wanted to hear this. So sitting here listening to this and
No.
the feeling of, okay, this is some kind of understanding.
Well, that comes from the idea that there's free will there. That there's someone there that chose to come here, and coming here was real. There's a real here, and there's either hearing something or not hearing something, and that has value. And none of that is true.
Okay. Yeah, it's being talked about. And
Well, there's talking happening.
Yes, talking happening, and there's all these feelings happening of like,
Yeah.
oh, something said, okay, understood.
Yeah.
That's the best we can do.
It's not helping.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, even the question and answers. Seriously, you don't want this.
Right, yeah.
If you had a choice, first off, if you knew what we were talking about, you never would have come. But if you had a choice to choose not existing or existing, you would choose to exist.
Right. Right. Okay.
But unbeknownst to you, there is, and sorry about this, it's a bit woo, but there's something else going on, which isn't necessarily the conversation.
Right.
And if there's an openness, there can be a real joy just hearing this or just being here or whatever. But it isn't about getting anywhere or the best anyone can do, because there isn't anyone to choose.
Yeah. Yep.
It literally has nothing to do with you. There isn't a you for it to have anything to do with.
You said that you would always choose to exist rather than not exist. you in quotes. What if someone's deeply suicidal? Could that
That's
be
still
different?
looking for a better experience.
Mhm.
Mm. Mm.
Could you say that again? That still doesn't,
But it's looking for a better experience.
it's looking for that.
Yeah.
So even they wouldn't want this.
No.
Hmm.
It's just unwantable in all of its variations. First off, it's unwantable because it's not separate. You can only want something separate. It's the same there as it is here. There's no difference. It's same there and there and there and there. It's all nothing. It's all fulfillment appearing to happen. It's done. Second, it's the end of the individual is, let's say, programmed. It's not really programmed, but it wants to survive. Unknowing is its nemesis, and the end of existence is something it can't know. The end of its existence is something it can't know. So it can't want the end of itself, can't conceive of it.
Mm.
So any way you look at it, it's just not wantable. But there might be at the same time like an inward yes or an openness or something to, what can't be known.
Mm. Maybe when the longing is stronger than the wanting, then
I don't know that it has to be like that. For me, it's more of an openness.
Mm.
There's an openness to something beyond getting, beyond knowing. Everybody here, wrong word, knows what we're talking about. It truly is more obvious than the experience of being separate. There's just nothing in it for the individual that's convinced that its solution, its fulfillment is hidden in enough getting. And there's nothing in it for what we're talking about. There's nothing in it for the individual. So it's overlooked.
There it is again. Thank you. Then I have to sing that song again.
Just happened.
Love it. Way too much fun. Cancer to see myself just rolling around on the floor, just laughing.
I can see that.
Why not?
So
Oh.
what brings us here?
Oh, you're not here. There isn't anyone here.
Okay.
Yeah.